So recently I was listening to BeutNoise's new EP, which by the way was really good, and I was thinking I have a track that sounds kind of like his style. So I'm kind of doing a video on how to sound like BeutNoise. It's not perfect, of course, none of my videos are, but it's the closest I could get as of recent, so yeah.
Like drug bomb.
So we're not really going to talk about the drums too much. We are going to talk about them, but not a whole ton. So with the drums, this is what they sound like soloed. Really the important thing with BeutNoise, if you want to really emulate his style, even though he doesn't do this as much as people think he does, it's definitely something that they do. They have this little, thing here. It's a tom of some sort, and basically you just want to put this right before the beginning of the next bar. So it like literally leads straight into it. If I turn on the metronome, it just adds kind of like a balance and a flow to the drums, so they're not as flat, which is nice. So if you hear it with everything, I'll turn it up so you guys can hear it. Yeah, you can hear it kind of just brings it into the next part, and then the rest of the drums are just kind of basic rhythm drums, but like some variations here and there like this. So yeah, it's kind of the drums. I don't really feel like going too far into this. Eventually I'll have to make a video on how I do my drums, like just in total, because I have a lot of processing and shit to make these sound cool, so look forward to that. I'm gonna do a video on how I do my drums, I promise. Now let's start with, I guess, the sub, just so we can get an understanding of the flow here. So here's the sub. So one thing you'll already notice is that it's offbeat. And the reason why is because it gives it that kind of, not lazy flow, but that loose flow, you know, that flow that's kind of like delayed and things like that. So if I turn on the metronome here, you'll notice it's not in key, or it's not on beat. So yeah, that's just like a way of making it loose, and it has a huge pitch drop, as you can see when I pull up the serum patch. This is the pitch drop. You can see it just absolutely dropping. And you know, it's just a really thick, fat, heavy sub with the saturator, and yeah, it works pretty well for this style. But yeah, now let's get into the main juicy parts that we really want, is the main bass, this top bass. So the way I do this, and with most of my basses, is I resample. Basically, that's like my main way of sound design, is resampling. So we'll go layer by layer. We'll start with the first main layer that you hear the most, the tonal clipping layer. So this is a layer that I've made a while ago, actually. Let's see if I can find it in my packs here. Right here. I'm just cutting it out so it's like hitting instead of, you know, riding in. Also, one thing to note, the way that this one sounds like this is by putting it up 8 semitones and then putting it on the beats mode, because the beats mode will kind of like glitch it the higher you put it up, because it's trying to stretch it out or thin it. So it gives it this kind of like, so like if I turn on a complex, it's just that, but we want that little flow, so we put on beats. And you can do that in different ways. It's just so easy to have it on beats, and it does it on its own. So yeah, basically this is literally just, literally all I'm doing with this layer is putting a glue compressor so that it doesn't fully clip the master. So if I take and then this, by the way, is just a reverse part of the same bass. It's this one, but in reverse. That just gives it some flow. You get the point. It's just a lot of messing around, a lot of putting hits in different spots, things like that to add in, you know, variations. But this layer is very basic. The rest of them are a lot more complex. So we'll go to the next one. So this one is very harsh and clicky, and it kind of hurts to listen to if you listen to it solo on high volume because of how piercing it is. But this is another bass that I made a while ago. It should be, I think, here it is, right here. And then I just follow the flow, and it just adds some clicking. And this one, there's literally no processing. It's just that I'm taking the sample and I'm shortening it with this curve here, as you can see. That's all I'm doing. Very simple layer. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So next layer here is a little bit more complex, but not by much. So this is one of my favorite samples to use for layering. It is a Virtual Riot sample, and if I can find it here, it's called Perk Tight 10, this one right here. And it's just such a perfect click at the beginning. That's just so good for layering if you want things to sound chunky and clicky and whatever. And all I'm doing here is saturating it so you can hear it a bit better in the mix, and pulling up this 1K. So yeah, that's basically it. And then it's following the flow. And as you can hear with everything, without it, with it, just add some more body to it. Now here's the most interesting of all of them. This is the 6 consoles thing. And you might be asking why it's called 6 consoles. It's because this whole song derived from a challenge that I did on a stream. And the sample was XQC Raging. And if you know XQC, he's very famous for his 6 consoles rant.
Gaming guitar controllers, 6 consoles!
And yeah, I used him saying console as a bass. Now this one has a lot of processing that we have to go through, so I'm going to turn everything off for now. This is what it sounds like on its own. I know, so it doesn't sound anything like a dude saying 6 consoles, but that's because the sample is being stretched out with this ×2 and put up 29 if I turned it down, maybe. Yeah, you can kind of hear it. And basically all I'm doing is I'm pitching it up 29 semitones, so that's a lot, and then putting it on this texture mode in Ableton, turning the grain size all the way down and the flux all the way down, and it gives it this weird, like, bleepy noise. So that's the bass sound. Now let me go through all these effects separately. I gotta turn them all off on their own. And this off. So we start with OTT. Just to kind of make it more, I guess. I don't know. And I'm taking out a little bit of the high end with this OTT because it was a little annoying. And then this is the main part. We're frequency shifting it down like 5.28 kilohertz. So it sounds like that, right? That's our bass sound, basically. Then we're going to OTT it again. For more definition, EQ. So with this EQ, we're getting rid of some really harsh frequencies down here in the 10K to 5K range. Very important because it helps just make the sound a lot better and less cluttered. And then we're increasing some of the 1K, 800. Now we're going to throw on Corpus, which is very important. Might sound like shit right now, but it'll sound better. So basically, this Corpus is tuned to C4 19 or whatever the fuck that is, cents. Yeah, 19 cents, C4. Decay 400 milliseconds, just some short-ish decay, just to kind of let it fall off. Dry wet 50, that's it. And then, oh yeah, we're also using beam mode and full instead of basic. Now, saturator. Beefing it up a lot, maybe a little too much, but whatever. 10.9 decibels, almost 11, and then we're putting it down -6 decibels on the output, so it's not too loud. Another frequency shifter to make it get that low metallic sound. OTT for more definition. Reverb for more room, and then glue compressor to make sure everything is all good and not clipping. And then transient shaper, which is being used to make the fade off not as much with the sustain going lower. So without it, with it, it's just a little tighter and cleaner. So yeah, that's all there is to it. I know it's a lot, and I know it's probably very confusing, and I know if you tried to replicate this, you'd probably sound nothing like this, and you'd be all confused and mad or whatever. But it's really just a lot of practice, a lot of fucking around, doing random shit. So like every time I would throw, like, let's say But yeah, that's that one. And then another layer, last layer here, very basic. This is another perk, no processing on it, because it doesn't need any. Although it probably could have some to help it, but yeah, whatever. So yeah, that's pretty much the main bass done. I'll play them all one by one. like adding each one on. So here's with just the tonal clipping. Here's with the thick chonk. Perk tight. 6 consoles. And Bandles perk. One little note to make this sound cooler is to add variations like this. So basically every now and then I'll be like, hey, this could be a little cooler, like here. So I literally just took this and I just did this, but like faster. I did like this, and then I just made it one sample and I faded it out like that. That's all I did for this. Also, another thing you can do to add variation is like see here how this only hits once, the main sound, but I have 2 hits here. It's just to add more percussion to it. Just, you know, little things like that that make the song a little bit more unique and things like that. Also, for the switch on this, I'm doing very basic switch. So basically what I'm doing is on this overtones group that has all of these tracks underneath it, I have a frequency shifter that I'm automating. So basically once it gets to this point right here for the switch, I'm automating it down and then keeping it at this level now. And then obviously I'm changing up the flow a little bit, but that's, you know, just trial and error like this. So yeah, that's the main basis done. Now, I will go over one more thing that I forgot to mention, which is this underlayer. Sounds like this. It's a bit annoying, but, you know, it's not supposed to be, you know, sounding nice. It's supposed to be annoying because it's a supplemental layer. So basically what this is once again, another sample of mine from another song that I don't know if I'll ever finish called Double Negative, and I'll play it for you. It sounds like this. And here's what it sounds like in the track. Basically, I'm just frequency shifting it down. So if I play this part of the drop without it, you'll notice a very big difference. And then with it. So I added this for a reason. One reason is because when I frequency shifted all this stuff, it made everything a bit shorter and harder to make out as its own bass. And so I thought it sounded empty, so I threw this in, and that's all I did, and it worked. Alright, I mean, that's pretty much everything. I guess technically I could go through the drums a little bit more in depth, but I really don't want to. I'll make a completely separate video on how I do my drums. I'll do the mastering real quick. So basically, I have ozone elements here. If I open this up, it is on the adaptive dynamics. Here's the settings for everything right now. If I go to Imager, I'm taking 20 width off. I do this a lot in my tracks because I think it sounds nicer when there's a little bit less stereo on it, but might just be me, I don't know. And then equalizer looks like this, just a straight line. Eventually, once I will fully finish this and mix it, I will take, you know, some of these points and mess around with some of the areas that I need to, but for now it's just a straight, you know, just a flat EQ. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. So yeah, hopefully this helps with you guys making your tracks sound a little bit more like BeutNoise. I know this wasn't perfect, but, you know, I think for the most part, it's pretty well done. I hope you guys enjoyed.